Hi everyone! Today I'm going to be telling the story about how when I was younger, basically my experiences ending up involved in a horse. What do I say to not get banned? Usually wild roleplays are naturally romantic just because people ask for a certain amount of mares and stallions, and then you're in the wild of Star Stable. I hated wild roleplays actually because I would just sit there and say, eats grass, lifts head up, sniffs the air. So when I was roleplaying every day with friends on the game, I didn't know that things would head that direction. It wasn't just one day we decided to put our horses together. It was over the course of a few weeks of an intense storyline we created. We were very invested. I thought, why not make this video since it's around the 9-year anniversary of this happening. This was 2013 Star Stable. I roleplayed my first 2 years playing the game. Well, actually, it was less than that. It was closer to a year. And then I completely stopped until I made realistic roleplay videos, which it's still considered role-playing because, I made up a story, had my horse acted out. I just made a video of it, so that's the difference. I was part of this group of friends. We weren't in the same club, but we would log on around the same time almost every single day and continue our story. At the time, they were super into wild roleplays, but I always wanted to do human horse. My first ever roleplay on Star Stable was summer camp, and that probably has to do with my first experience of horses being summer camp in real life. I went to summer camp and that's how I got introduced to horses, and then being a camp counselor at my first barn. But we had a couple of other friends join us sometimes, and we did have trouble because the group limit on the game is 5, and we weren't in the same club. We just roleplayed together, so sometimes people got left out. Also, because of the group limit, that always means one person's horse doesn't have a mate, unless you know that stallions can have multiple mares, which, of course, typically people are not that realistic on the game. We were just having a fantasy situation, okay? My starter horse, who is a mare, was usually the 5th and left out of the passionate horse couple dating situation going on. So that's probably why I hated wild rolls, because most of the time I was the one who didn't know what the hell to do with my horse except type in eats grass, and I would get so pissed off about that sometimes that I would make my horse go eats rock or eats tree, and then someone would put in parentheses, let's be serious. How in role plays when someone's like time out, change the story, that's what would happen. So I got told that probably it was probably only 3 times, but yeah, I didn't want to be too annoying. The other 4 girls in the group, actually there was a 5th who was one of the girls' cousins who would show up sometimes. There was this other girl as well who was annoying and only got along with me and my best friend. Because my horse didn't get much game, I ended up breeding to both one of my friend's cousins and the annoying girl. Not even someone who was the main friend group. The main friend group was a group of 4, but then there were the 2 others. I need to say I bred my horse to their horses because otherwise it sounds really wrong. I just said, oh, I ended up breeding to them. Okay, let's just move on. I'll talk about the friends a little bit, and I'm going to change all of their names for the video. So first was my best friend in the group, who was my OG Star Stable best friend. She ended up founding Flower Girls with me, actually. By the way, I haven't owned Flower Girls in years. I just thought I'd mention that because some people still think I'm the owner, even though it's been so long since I've owned. My friends own the club now, and they have for over 2 years. My best friend at the time, I'm gonna say her name is Jasmine for the video. And then there were 2 other girls who were best friends themselves, and their names for this video are Ashley and Rachel. I third wheeled them when Jasmine wasn't around. Even though I was still their friend, I was just, the third wheel. And they were openly pissed at me. They weren't pissed at me in the beginning, but then because I had gotten into the most popular club on the server at the time, which was Red Heart's Legacy, which was called a different name when I joined. And so then they were saying that I was trying too hard to be popular. And then because of my YouTube channel that I had at the time, Rachel got a little weird with me, even though she had a YouTube channel herself. Actually, my best friend did too. And so Rachel and I were talking one-on-one in the old Silverglade Village at night after I had my first fan come up to me. She said something along the lines that being popular would mean I would be different and full of myself, and she was saying that even though at the time I didn't have that many subscribers, and she was still saying that, so I was a little confused, but I said I wasn't going to get popular. I'd only made music videos at that point, and Rachel had made 2 music videos. Excuse me. Jasmine ended up with a successful YouTube channel with amazing videos, but it's now completely deleted. It's obliterated. So she had a lot of dedicated fans, and I would have my friends do random things for music videos like rear on cliffs, jump off of cliffs, stuff like that. So they were involved in my videos a little and did their own music videos too when we weren't role playing. Like I was saying earlier, our 5th person was sometimes Ashley's cousin Nina, and then sometimes it was the annoying girl Paige. I can't remember how I met Paige, but I was the one who met her first. I actually can't remember how I met any of these people. I guess I'll try to describe the people in the group the best I can. I'm just gonna say the type of vibe I got from them. So Ashley led what was happening most of the time. She had a dark, kind of girly style and personality. She wasn't outgoing. She was a little grungy, like the girls who would wear a beanie and plaid, but yet she was also girly at the same time. That's how I would describe her. Rachel would go along with anything Ashley did, and she had a darker personality than Ashley, but was actually way more outgoing. Like, she got along with people better, and she loved Skittles. And then her mom had died recently at the time, and she had to watch her younger sister and was home alone a lot. So that's why she was able to be on Star Stable so much and stay up so late. Actually, everyone was able to be on Star Stable a lot. I think it was just our age, and when we were done with school and activities, every other hour was Star Stable, and we would stay up so late. Jasmine, my best friend, she was the kindest out of everybody. She wore bright clothes. I remember myself being really girly. I would wear the brightest clothes out of everyone, had an all pink outfit, and then Ashley and Nina, they thought I was annoying as hell most of the time, or at least that's what I was getting from them. Like, that's what I thought was happening. I didn't know really why until I grew up and was like, yeah, I can be obnoxious. I kind of see what was happening. Some people, they just matured faster than others. So Paige would tag along with both Jasmine and I because we were nice to her, and we would include her. So then when we would go do a role play with the friend group, we would bring her along to be the 5th person. And Ashley and Rachel hated that. Nina, the cousin, also hated her. But then again, Nina was Ashley's cousin. Nina would not roleplay with Paige at all, but then again, Nina would be the 5th person, so then Nina would replace Paige. Now that I'm looking back, I think it was pretty toxic. I'm like saying I think. It was. It definitely was toxic. Nina was definitely emo. She was nice. She just kind of would come across as cold. Paige was just your typical obnoxious kid who didn't fit in at all. Was trying really hard to fit in, actually. She had a darker style, and she wanted to be emo. Like, she openly wanted to identify with that community, but it really was not working out. Not sure why, I couldn't tell you. There were fights that broke out so many times between Paige and Ashley, and then one time Ashley sent the nastiest mails to Paige. Paige sent screenshots to Star Stable support, and then Ashley was chat banned for a week. And I remember finding out she was chat banned. I walked up to her in Moorland, and she was Skyping with Rachel. Well, I knew they were Skyping because they weren't, adding me to a group, and they weren't you know, all that kind of stuff. So I went up to them. Ashley was rearing for yes and shaking her horse back and forth for no. And they were pissed at Paige. So pissed. And that week I wasn't around Ashley or Rachel that much because I was actually the one who told Paige to send the screenshots to Star Stable. But Ashley never found out. And I remember being so scared that she would find out and never talk to me again. But I feel like they kind of got the vibes that I did it because I was acting, guilty. I wasn't talking to them. Paige did actually tell Rachel that it was her who sent the screenshots. And obviously Rachel was pissed about that because Ashley's her best friend. And it was a week. At the time, that I feel like that was a long ban for the time. But I didn't exactly see the mails. I just heard some of the stuff that Paige was saying to me, and it was nasty. I'm not sure how some of the things got through the filter. I just remember being really torn, and I ended up just not being around Ashley or Rachel that week. They were pissed off at me too because I was still talking to Paige, even though Ashley was like, oh my gosh, Paige did all this to me. I didn't actually hate Paige, even though she was annoying. We didn't click that well, but also she was not the one bullying people. Well, okay, there was another situation. So there were multiple times where Paige would do questionable things as well. So see, this is why I'm talking about this toxic friend. Okay, Jasmine, who doesn't get into fights, actually got into a fight with Paige and yelled at her. Then I got into a fight with Paige myself because she was a stallion and she murdered Ashley's horse's foal. I don't know what was going through her head to think, okay, yeah, this is the best solution. Like, let's, in a role play, kick a foal to death. So that sort of shit would happen. At the time, we were livid. We were beyond pissed. It was like the end of the world because the roleplay was ruined. The story was getting ruined. We would roleplay in quite a few different places. Of course, there's the classic Everwin Fields, Pride Rock, if that's still a thing. We spent a good amount of time there. We were also over near Nilmers and Silverglade Manor at that beach area. And we would go up to Nilmers as well. And that was before there was a circus there. It was just an open field before the circus. So we used it. Then we used Apple Grove probably like 3 times. I hated role-playing there though. And then there were also a few times in the Hollow Woods. How our story went involved only our starter horses. And this was during the time period of Star Stable where we could only have one horse. So we made our horses have the most detailed personalities since they were our entire focus. They were our main characters. And sometimes people would change their horse's gender for the roles or, change personalities or the character every single time. But in my experience, most people wanted to stay true to who their starter horse character was. My horse was a mare, originally named Jewel. Her actual Jorvik name was Jewel Magic, and her name changed multiple times since then. I changed her name to Magic, her nickname to Magic. See, this is confusing. I changed her nickname to Magic around the same time, and I just went back and forth, and then I ended up going from Jewel Magic to accidentally Apple Madness. When the notary person came out where you could change the name, I accidentally did that. And then I changed to Rose Magic to finally Lucky Clover, and I still don't like that name for my starter horse. So to this day, years and years later, I'm still having horse identity issues. Jasmine's horse was a stallion named Westy. I say stallion and mare. We said mare and stallies. Oh my god. Was stallion filtered? I can't even remember the filter system at the time, but I don't know. This is off topic, but there was one update where we logged on and everything was filtered. There was a glitch that happened. I can't remember what Ashley's mare was named, but her mare, was always together with Westy, which made me jealous a lot because Jasmine was my best friend and I wanted to be with her more. This is me editing. I remember now that Ashley's mare was named Autumn. So whenever I say Ashley's mare, it's Autumn. So that's inconvenient. I didn't remember that then, but here we are. Then Westy and Ashley's mare obviously, didn't start out together, but over the course of the story, they developed a really intense relationship and they were the first to breed to each other. I remember the day it was happening. I remember Paige's Sally was with my horse at that point, and we were listening in the group chat, obviously. Things were headed in that direction. And I remember that when things were really intense, that's when we would temporarily leave the group, make a new group, and then that's when the real love happened privately. Then whoever was out of the group would get invited back, and we would just continue on with the role. Not like nothing happened. Everybody knew something happened. Otherwise, you wouldn't have left. And then, also, I think we did it when there were fights too. If like a mare and Stally were fighting with each other or something, it'd be like, we gotta go privately. Or they wouldn't say it like that, but then they'd go make another group and then have their dramatic talk and then come back. It was like a timeout. That night when Westy and Ashley's mare went and we're going to do it behind the Fir Grove buildings, they didn't actually end up doing it behind the Fir Grove buildings, like they went somewhere else, but Paige and I were being weird as fuck and followed them because we were excited for them and super curious, and then obviously they got pissed and then ran off. Rachel always had a stallion named Rocky, who I actually don't know who Rocky was with. Rocky was more of a loner and would only be with a mare sometimes. Never my mare though. My mare got together with Paige's stallion first. Paige always had a stally, and I think his name was Spirit. I'm 99% sure that it was Spirit. Whenever Nina would be online and replace Paige, she would switch back and forth from mare to stallion, and her horse's name and identity would always change. I think it was just because she wasn't as interested in Star Stable and was just there to play with her cousin Ashley, so there wasn't the attachment to having the same horse character. Soon after, Jasmine, Stallion, Westy, and Ashley's mare had their time to shine, Paige and I kind of followed in their footsteps, and our horses fell in love. We definitely weren't as passionate of role players though. Like, yeah, we were invested in the story, but everyone else definitely got more into character and it was a lot more serious. Okay, technically Paige was serious, but kind of in her own way. She was definitely less mature than everybody else. Paige's horse had the same body coat as Magic, just the mane was slightly blacker. And I didn't realize when I created Magic. I made her a bay, but her mane wasn't the blackest one you can choose, so that was the difference. I made her off of one of the horses I showed when I was younger. She was an Arab. We ended up getting to the point where it was the right time for our horses to woohoo, and it really wasn't that deep or passionate. I swear I'm using the wrong words, but I just remember we were having a fun time. We left the main roleplay group to go to our own private one. Then we went past the pole bending apocalypse race where there's that secret picnic area in the back, and we went behind the flowers. Well, there's a fence and then the flowers behind it. And I remember the Sally in the roleplay always was supposed to ask, "Are you ready?" to the mare. So I said yes for Magic, and then Paige, I say Paige when, this is why I'm like all tripped up, because it's Paige, but it's also in the role play, it's her Stally. So Spirit reared up behind my horse like 10 times, and then that was it. My horse was just magically going to get pregnant, and my whole vision was that she was going to have a filly. That was the one with the paint markings, the starter model horse, and I would name her Summer Song, except I have no idea how that would even be possible, how I even thought of that, putting two bay horses together and then getting a paint coated horse. I actually, spoiler alert, I never ended up getting Summer Song, my dream paint horse, but I have no idea what the paint markings are called on that starter horse. I know the breed isn't a paint, obviously. I just called it a paint horse because I don't know what the markings are called. Basically, I was so convinced that my bay horse would have that specific foal, but my dream was going to be crushed. Then something happened where Ashley and Rachel just completely cut Paige off, and so if I wanted to continue role playing with the friend group, it couldn't be with Paige. I'm pretty sure it was that Ashley got so sick of Paige that it was just over. I just remember she wasn't around that much anymore and Nina would be there instead. So then Magic was grieving that she didn't have her Sally anymore, and things were getting tense with the group. I started getting extremely bored with wild role playing, except they were really into it because they were having issues in real life, they were using it as their pacifier. Why am I saying that? As their oasis, as their distraction from the real world. I would complain to Jasmine about the wild roleplay getting so old, and then Jasmine was agreeing with me, but I don't know if it was because she actually agreed with me or if she was just being nice. But then I would try to convince everyone to human horse roll, but they were still obsessed with the wild story. I mean, I think part of the reason why I felt that way was also because my mare was pregnant in the story. Her stallion was gone because Paige was gone. And I was just kind of left in limbo because there had to realistically be a waiting period so that my foal could hatch. When our horses would have a foal in the role plays, then we would just have an imaginary baby following along with our horse. So then finally, when it was time for my horse to have the foal, I literally walked into the Golden Leaf stable and a vet was just there. Even though it was a wild role play. And our horses were wild, but they still had access to a vet. But then there was a long birthing process. I remember this night playing Star Stable. Either Ashley or Rachel played the vet. I can't remember. Jasmine wasn't there. It was just me and the other two. You know, maybe things would have been different if there was somebody else there. But they were saying that there were so many complications, and I knew where it was headed, and I started to get pissed off because they were acting so dramatic about, you know, all the complications, and they were trying to say that they were just being realistic when really it wasn't even realistic at all, that there was even a vet and that my horse was magically tame and in the stall in Golden Leaf stable. But anyway, long story short, the foal ended up dying to save Magic, my starter horse, and I was beyond upset. I wasn't interested in role playing anymore, but I still wanted to be with the friend group, so I would then, for example, go shopping while they still role played. Then they would get mad at me about that, and the friend group continued to slowly fall apart. Then my horse ended up developing a relationship with Nina's stallion. Things changed a little. It got a little bit darker. I don't know why I just kept on role playing even though I didn't like it. Most of the time I didn't role play, but the times that I did, it was just a bad experience. It just happened where our horses got to the point where it was the right time. I feel like it took a while just because things were just slow with the role playing. Everyone was getting busier in real life. This time was just different though. It got extremely weird. I wasn't into it. She wasn't a bad person. I mean, but she was the person I knew the least out of the group, and she was a lot more mature than everyone else. I remember she was older than the rest of the group, and obviously we didn't have the same understanding or level of detail when we rolled. I was more on Paige's level when it came to putting our horses together. Nina was 50 Shades of Grey level. And I still wanted to be included in the friend group though, so I did what they did. And thankfully, I was at the point where I was transitioning to making more friends in Red Heart's legacy, being involved, and had really nice experiences, so that was going to be the next stepping stone in my Star Stable times. I had good things coming for me, I just didn't know it yet. Ashley was getting in trouble in real life. At this point, she was constantly grounded, it seemed like, and that just made things worse because she changed to where she was angry a lot and would only talk to Rachel. Back to Paige, I only remember her coming back rarely, and Ashley and Rachel would never roleplay if Paige was involved. So then there was tension, and so I kind of had to choose between okay, do I want to be with a friend group or do I want to be alone with Paige in this random role-playing group? And obviously I wanted to be with the friend group. I didn't want to be with the random people. So whenever Paige would log on, she would want me to roleplay. So a couple times I would join a random group with her, and it was always terrible and boring. Okay, except that one time there was this crazy person in the group whose horse bled all over the sand and nobody could figure out what the problem was. And it was not a foal, like just for the record. And one of the Red Hearts members was also in that roleplay group, and I just remember telling that story and laughing about it for the longest time, even though it's not even funny now. Okay, well, back to the role-playing part. I'm off track. But just like with Paige, Nina and I left the group. We chose the cliffs between Milmer's Highland and the Silverglade Manor. And Nina was doing most of the chatting. I was just kind of there. It was pretty obvious that I wasn't interested in the role. And Nina was catching on. And with Paige, we just went down to the secret spot. She reared, and that was that. But with Nina, there was some romance going on beforehand that I did not understand at all at the time. Then it came to the rearing part, and Nina suddenly just stopped and was like, "You're not saying anything. It just doesn't seem like you're into it. You're just not saying whether you like it or not, and you're not giving any feedback." And the thing is, looking back, I'm like, this was not realistic. Like, yes, it was a wild role, and we were like playing wild horses, and they were trying so hard for it to be realistic. But when I think about mares in real life, it doesn't work the way that we were doing it. It was more like we were humans, and this was the situation. Then it was just embarrassing. And I was like, yup, that feels great. And whatever I said just made things 10 times worse. And I literally had no idea what I was doing. So we stopped because it was terrible. And I don't remember what happened after that. I'm pretty sure I never did a role play with Nina again. I remember part of the reason the group faded out was because I was getting way more involved in club activities and completely stopped role playing. Jasmine eventually joined Red Hearts. I completely stopped talking to Ashley and Rachel. They were still best friends. They went pretty inactive, and I remember they weren't on my friends list anymore. Ashley was off of it first, and then eventually Rachel followed. I don't remember if there was a fight or who removed who, but I was only talking to Jasmine at that point. Paige would show up once in a blue moon, and we'd friend chat, but she always wanted to roleplay, and like I said a million times, I was over it. I do have to talk about my last roleplay experience at the time, which was a big joke. I randomly joined this wild roleplay with a bunch of strangers. I can't even remember why. I don't know why. But by this time, the game was further along to where we could have more than one horse. And I started off as a mare, and this random stally was pursuing my mare. I was being a troll, and so I made my mare reciprocate the stallion's feelings until so quickly the stallion wanted me to go behind the bushes at the far end of the Everwind fields to talk. I don't know if those bushes are still there. It was like this brush pile that people would breed behind. We were being romantic and getting somewhere, and I said, "Wait just a minute. I thought you were a mare." Like I said, I was trolling, and in the middle of the roleplay, without saying anything, I changed my horse's gender. Now I'm a stallion, and this other person is also a stallion, and they made that text face on the game, the one with the big eyes, and got so weirded out, and they were like, oh my god, I didn't know that, this is bad, and they ran off. That was the end of my role-playing experience until I dabbled into making realistic roleplay videos. I just thought it would be interesting if I told my experience of my roaming and rexing days. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.